Welcome back to Gig Harbor Paddling. Today we're talking about reach and rotation. Like the basis of any sport, the hips are the powerhouse of the sport. They lead everything else. And so today we get to talk a little bit about what comes after the hips. So we reach and we rotate with the hips. What happens after that? What do you do while you're reaching? What do you do right before the reach? And so whether it's canoe or kayak, it's gonna be a little different, but it's just as important. So we're gonna look at that today. We're gonna start with canoe and then we're gonna move to kayak. You guys have two different focuses today. Canoers, today we're gonna talk about how much rotation do you actually need? And what does it look like? Where is it? How is it gonna feel? We'll talk a little bit about that. So here he goes. His hips stopped rotating right there, by the way. You can see his upper back. So he stopped rotating when his hips stopped rotating. That was awesome. And he still has really good upper body rotation. His arms are completely extended. And look at how far forward he buries his blade. Wait, right there. You guys see that? So one thing I love to identify that's really fun to draw is the A-frame that we have. And if you can have a good big A-frame while being connected, that is the idea. So we're just identifying some cool things. What does he do once his blade is buried? Let's watch. He starts opening up his hip and his body is starting to rise. Do you guys see that? So that's good. I do see a bit of a pendulum swing here. This is a pendulum swing, right? Do we want that in our boats? Not really, no. We want to plant and then kind of drive together. So it takes a lot of connectedness. He's staying pretty low here, so it is going to make it harder for him to exit properly. Where does his hip stop? So his hip was moving. He stops right there. So he's about 90 degrees. It's a little late. I wouldn't like him to open his hip that much. But what's cool is he does stop it. And now he's already starting to move forward. Did you see that? He's moving his hip back. He stops. And now he just engaged it moving forward. Did you see that? I'm looking right here. He started moving it forward. And is his paddle still in the water? Yeah. Yes. He's still pulling it back, still exiting, and then follows his hip. When I say follow your hip, you can follow it at any time in the stroke, whether you're in the pull phase or in your exit. So all of you canoers, I could go through every single one of your videos, including his, and show you how you are opening your hips up way too much, way too far back. Our sport is very fluid and connected. And so when I say immediately going back forward, I obviously mean in conjunction with the rest of your strokes. So if coaches say stay forward, you guys just heard Sadie say it, that is connected to having a forward hip at the return. Right here, compared to here, that's what the angle I'm talking about. She opens up here and then she keeps it there. Now, you see that right there? As she's exiting the water, she's bringing her hips forward. So if you do that with your hips, if you have everything back and then you suddenly have everything forward, the boat's gonna go back. And so that's a huge, obvious reason I can help paint a picture in your mind why we do this, why we need to bring our hip forward before we exit, and this is what it looks like. So her right thigh, if your right thigh actually should be in a lot of pain because it is constantly holding tension between powering back but then immediately needing to engage it forward again, and it's gonna hurt. But it's a muscular pain that's gonna develop endurance, and it's going to help you keep the boat powerful and smooth. If we open our hips up too much, a lot of things a lot of bad things can happen, right? So we have some athletes on the team at the moment who are having either hip or back pain because of it. How many canoers have back pain? Sometimes or all the time? Mm-hmm. Right. Because how easy is it just to kind of fall over in the stroke or pull with your back muscles? Benji is focusing on what we're talking about. He's trying to focus on going back powerfully and pulling forward powerfully, using both legs in conjunction with each other. I think Benji has some of the best reach on our entire team. I was looking, and I just, look at this, you guys. Do you see how far he's reaching? The fatness of the A, which is a good thing. Like that, it's pretty massive. And we want this for you guys if you're connected and if we're immediately pressing up and pulling back with our hip simultaneously. And that's everyone's dream, right? All of you are trying to get flexible enough to do this. All of you are trying to get strong enough to do this. We all are. So he's buried way up there. He's still, look at all the positive angle he has. Sorry, I'm just still gawking at this. It's really good, guys. This is good. Let's talk about our muscles. This is going to relate to you kayakers too. So there's different fibers and they're connected, and people use the word striation, and they expand and then they contract. And when they contract, they get all buff and tall. You know what I'm talking about, right? So eccentric, concentric. When you're super pulled apart, it's when your muscles are like barely hanging on to each other and they're there still, but are they the strongest they could be? No. What about when they're like super close in like this? Like, is this the best position, the strongest position you could be? No. There's an optimal middle ground. There's an optimal middle ground. So when you're not too pulled apart and you're not too cramped. And maybe we are super flexible and we can elongate that far and it's super impressive. Do we need that though for a powerful stroke every time? Maybe not. And it's going to look different for every single one of you. If I pulled up Sebastian Brendel, which I can't because my Wi-Fi isn't working, you would see that he is a super tall man, but he actually doesn't. If he did what Benji did, he would have like an 8-foot stroke, but he doesn't because he either is consciously thinking about it or his body just has that natural feel and he understands, I just need this part. So I'm trying to make you guys aware that even if you can reach out really far in a certain way, it might not be as optimal as you think. And all of us need to figure out where that optimal elongated but still contracted position is. If he's super elongated here, he's super stretched out, because he's been told his whole life, hey, we need to get a good reach. Is he going to be the strongest in that position? No. It'd be very impressive if he was. But there's just physiological barriers we have. And so I'm going to challenge you, Benji, and everyone else here, especially who's a canoeer, that you guys find where is that optimal spot, and that's where I want my catch to be. And so I'm okay if you guys want to reach really far, sure. But then when it's time to grab the water, your hips should already be engaged in almost, I hesitate saying this because a lot of you are trying to be patient with your hips, but you are a little too patient with your hip on this one. And I would like to see you start pulling back with your hip a little bit earlier so that your catch is already like strong when you touch the water. So it's not in the water, then be powerful. It's like it's like a wheel on an erg, and you're just like catching the water with it. So he rotates open, probably has finished rotating by this point, but now he's pushing back. So his front knee is opening. Let's see how far back he goes. I'd say probably your hips stop moving right here. So he doesn't go right there. So you stopped your hip, you stopped it. And I'd say right now, you're starting to pull it forward. So kayakers, a lot of us need to work on being vertical. If we enter the water, so I'm in my kayak, right? And we enter the water sideways, what is this force? If I'm like digging in this way, what is the force gonna do? What way do I want to go? Forward. Yeah, and up. right? So if I want to go forward and up, maybe getting more on top of the water. So see what I did there? Did I do this? Because that's pretty vertical, but that's not going to help, right? My shoulder is not in a safe place. But I can move my elbow forward with my hand following or leading, you could say. Did I move my body? No. So this is physically possible. You all can do this. It's just weird if you haven't been doing it. So again, going into the water sideways, not helpful. Going into the water with this bad technique, not helpful. So we need to all focus on getting to this vertical spot. We want to rotate. Holding my position, I moved my hands independent of my body. And then I rotated as one unit. When your paddle's out of the water, you can move your arms separate from your bodies. But once you decide it's time for power, everything must move together. She has her body rotated. You see that? Her legs up, it's holding. There's a few things wrong here. She might have lost too much rotation, but after studying a lot of really, really fast people, me and Scott were actually looking at these videos, you actually see them engaging their leg a bit earlier. Alan talks a lot about firm up your leg, like make sure everything's ready to go. So it's what I was just talking about with the canoers. Remember I said this connects to us. We actually do want to start the rotation with the hips. It's all about timing of when exactly is that though. She probably started it too early, but I actually want us to be prepared, and if everything's following our hips, then they're going to move first, right? Otherwise that statement doesn't make sense. And then it helps you not start with your arms. Her body knows it needs vertical pressure and her arm is way over in order to do it. So this is an example of a paddler who knows how to find that feeling, but in the wrong way. You know what she told me yesterday when we videotaped this? She said her shoulders were hurting on the inside, which makes sense to me because what is she doing? With a lot of power. So she's here in the air. She knows she needs to get to the water, add some power. And she also has her hand over the boat, but she does keep a little bit more bend in her arm. My point here is that we have another paddler who knows she needs the vertical pressure, and that's how she got to the water. You're gonna have the best catch if both hands are at least at eye level. So why I say this to you, Griffin, is because technically your setup was right here. Your setup is when your paddle is parallel to the water. So I would actually like you to bring this up to this level. This is so fun. It's green. Okay, you're gonna be up more, so the teeter-totter is greater. But little do you guys know, your paddle's actually kind of helping you balance. So if you switch that mindset, you could actually use it to your benefit. You put your paddle in and you start moving your body, but then sometimes your arms go, and then you start moving your body again, and then sometimes the arms go, and then, so we just want it one fell swoop. Boom, with the body, and then the hands can move separately from the body. There's a beautiful moment where everything, like this is all paused, while the finesse is happening, while the graceful coming in to position happens. And then when you're in that optimal position and you're completely in setup and you start going down to the water, that's when your hands can move down together. So I'm gonna show you. Do you see how my hand's waiting and reaching? I'm actually telling my body to reach as I'm getting here. Reach, 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 down, reach, 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 down. Does that make sense? Maybe you need to tell yourself that. Maybe you need to say reach, 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 down. Give yourselves 3 reach words in between. And then you can put that downward pressure together. Obviously, guys, don't take me wrong. We're not just going down, right? We're rotating, but the pressure of the hands is focusing on going down the shaft of the paddle. So when you're in a good setup position, the way you get to a good power position is you move the elbow forward. Does that make sense? You keep this, but instead of doing this, or this, or this, we move our elbow forward. And our hand, watch my hand See how it's a little bit in front of my elbow? My elbow's a little bit in front of my shoulder. Our hand stays that same angle. I don't just move my elbow forward, I move it all forward. Then we can rotate and press down.